Aren't they so cute? Look at them. Even Trump is in here, orange. I was like, look at that. I had to bring this story up, even though I just did like two different things. And this one is just on point. It's just on point, right? And it's monkeys with a white face. Why is it the white monkeys, man? Why? Researchers puzzle over rash of baby monkey kidnappings. This is on NPR. I was like, this isn't like, is this like a joke? Is it a funny story? Is it, you see the monkey and then it has another baby on him. It says, in this still from wildlife camera, a 1 to 2 day old howler monkey infant clings to the body of a young capuchin monkey. Is that what they're called? Scientists say they are likely kidnapping the howler babies for their own amusement. So we have SowSheOhPth monkeys. And I said kidnappings are very popular and nobody gets in trouble for it most of the time. But this is them in the wild. The white man as a monkey. Okay, wait. On an island in Panama, a fad that one researcher calls viscerally disturbing, something like that, has recently taken off among a group of young male monkeys. Why is it the men? These adolescents and juveniles have started to kidnap the infants of another monkey species, seemingly just for kicks. That's what scientists think after watching a bunch of male white-faced monkeys walking around with baby howler monkeys clinging to their back. The perplexing baby snatchers, because they're all going after the little minors, right? And then suggest that humans aren't the only intelligent species with youngsters that pursue apparently pointless activities that can be destructive to other creatures. They're just doing it for the sake of doing it, to reduce their boredom, or have something to do to fill their time and space in their lives. And I think seeing this occur in another species is somewhat terrifying because it's kind of reflects a mirror of the actions that we do as people. Okay, you know why this is related to the last story? Because the guy that was depressed that they're talking about understands this, okay? Understands even the animal life, the horrors that happen in the wild. And like, if you were to debate that guy, there's nothing really to debate. It's like life itself was horrifying. Mostly when they started teaching us about like the food chain, that was pretty horrific. And then people trying to make it into some like glorious thing that animals have to die for other things to live, right? So this was the topic which strangely did bother me as well as a kid. And interestingly enough, in the other story is the same thing. And apparently in a lot of people's life, that portion disturbs people. And it tailed off into this other thing with that person where it's just horrific, right? It's just this chronic thing of life itself is really effed up. And this falls right there. So this is like the story that goes right there. But this apparently was a design from some man. Some guy named Jesus and his father created this to do this kind of crap. Go nab some kids, right? Nab somebody else's kids. Isn't that what they do? Right? Yeah, but this is in nature, like where they're not as educated as, the human species, but there may be, I think there may be some species out here that are way smarter than humans, but okay, and maybe the monkeys are. I don't know, but no, not if they're acting like this. So, an expert in animal culture, I was like, is this the white male culture? The animal culture at the Max Institute of Animal Behavior in Germany, and a member of the research team who is also a research associate at the Smithsonian Tropical Research Institute. He describes capuchin monkeys as chaos agents. So that could be like the Republican Party, I don't know, the forest, in the tropical forest, I don't know, that roam through the forest, ripping up and manipulating everything in sight, and says they're similar to humans and chimps in many ways. They're highly innovative. They're highly explorative. They do interesting, strange things. The capuchins that have started kidnapping howler monkey babies live on Jicoran Island, which is part of Panama's, Cobia National Park. Unlike mainland capuchins, these island monkeys have figured out how to use stone tools to break open hard food items like seeds, crabs, and coconuts. That's why scientists have been watching them there since 2017 with the help of wildlife cameras. So Zoe, a behavioral ecologist with Max Planck or whatever Institute of Animal Behavior and the Smithsonian Research Associate, was reviewing camera footage when, to her surprise, she saw a capuchin carrying a howler monkey baby. And it was not something we'd seen before. And it's not something I've heard of happening. And there was, I think, a split second where I was wondering if it could be just a capuchin monkey that looked very weird. But then it was very quickly clear that it was a different species. Curious, she started looking through more of the footage and it became apparent this wasn't just a one-off. It happened repeatedly, started in January 22 when a particular immature male that the researchers called Joker seemed to be the innovator of this new activity. We have the puppet master. They name him Joker. Joker is recognizable because of a small scar on his face. Is this like a joke? Like, I don't even know. It reads like he's a mafia. Okay, and over a few months, the camera caught him carrying around 4 different infants, holding on to each of them for up to 9 days. Well, what are the poor babies, dude? He touched them. This was a tragic development for the baby howlers, that they had no nourishment and noticeably... so they deteriorated over time, and they're likely probably dying from dehydration or lack of nutrition. So who knows that those babies need their mother's milk and that several were actually seen dead in camera footage. Or are they females? Like, do they know? I don't know. We're going to find out. Maybe, or maybe not. Other young male capuchins who saw Joker's novel behavior, however, decided to copy it. Yeah, so when these SowSheOhPth men get in a room together and one's a piece of you-know-what, all their male pals are, and they all think they're normal, and then they all lie together and they do horrible things and destroy the planet Earth, right? That's the thing. So starting in September, over a period of 6 months, the researchers saw 4 other immature males, 2 subadults, and 2 juveniles carrying around howler infants. And these capuchins had gotten a hold of at least 7 different howler monkey babies and carried them for stretches of 2 to 8 days. Monkey see, monkey do. This is how we explain men. Like, although animals do sometimes adopt the young of the other species that are lost or abandoned, this doesn't seem to be the case here. It's part of the sheer number of babies. Plus, researchers could hear adult howler monkeys calling back and forth with the infants, who would sometimes try to crawl away. Camera footage showed the one occasion when an adult howler came and tried to retrieve a baby and a capuchin scared it off. Because the actual abductions likely occurred in the trees, they were not captured on camera. But the researchers note that the adult howlers are nearly 3 times the weight of immature capuchins, so a would-be kidnapper might face serious risk. Personally, you really want to know how they're getting them, but mostly also how much effort they're putting into that. And just, it's probably the same thing like dangling, candy. Hey, your mom. That's them. I got a record deal for you, kid. And get into my car. Okay, so this is Who's That Number? A Stolen Baby suggests that the capuchins may be traveling some distance to go find them. Yeah, but what are they doing with them? Because is there sexual assault in this? Like, I want to know, because it probably is. Since only a few small group of howler monkeys live nearby. And that I would find completely bizarre if they would go through so much effort to go get those babies. While the capuchin named Joker seemed to take a caring and affectionate stance towards the babies, the other capuchins that copied him seemed largely indifferent to the infants they carried and sometimes even annoyed. Adult capuchins in the group, meanwhile, seemed blasé. They're not tremendous social interests. They're not acting in the way that someone would act if I was carrying around, like, a baby lying on my shoulders. To Goldsboro, the fact that Joker's behavior got copied by his peers reveals the strength of these monkeys' drive to learn from others, even if the behavior doesn't completely make sense or have an obvious immediate benefit. Even for these monkeys, stone tool use, which takes some time to master, there's a period of time, especially when you're young, that you are just copying this behavior with very little payoff. Caught on camera. This isn't the first time that animals have been observed engaging in seemingly purposeless behaviors that seem to spread through their groups. Chimpanzees, for example, have been spotted wearing blades of grass in their ears, apparently as a fashion trend, and orcas, those evil bastards, have been seen wearing dead salmon on their heads and almost like hats. Yeah, they're insane. I can't even watch like things on them. They're brutal. Okay. And yeah, so it's those things that guy that did that thing in Palm Springs. Yeah, if I sat down all day just thinking about how terrible the orcas are and the damn sharks in the freaking water and how they go and they chase and eat their babies and crap, yeah, I would not be in a good place. But that's the reality of the world. So, that's where he was struggling. I don't see that as being associated with the psychopath. Like, I was thinking about it, and let's just say he tried to burn down the house. So I was sitting there like, I was just thinking about it on the last thing. I was like, I don't think that would be associated. I mean, it may be in tie with like what they would say antisocial behavior, because if he tried to do that, but technically if he did that, maybe it was because he was trying to take everybody out. I mean, I have no idea. I don't know how it happened. I don't know if the parents were in the same room and then it just happened, or it happened and he got questioned and it just got brushed off as an accident and it really wasn't, because he was like wanting to play with fire, and then at the end of this, he's like doing a bomb. So it shows an interest there. And I would almost say it's somewhat related. It's just an early step into wherever this went. And again, this is very much in tie what he was talking about in the wildlife. And they sat down, this group of people, like they would all talk with each other about how everything's about pain and just trying to be okay and working so hard. Yeah, it was just like, okay, well, you can't even debate that. Like, I have no argumentation against it because, yeah, that's true. But then they come to the conclusion that, so we should just like, just all this stuff. I don't want to get into it because they have all these like weird things on here, about stuff. So, because we have censorship and all that stuff and yada yada. They got some screwy thinking about this topic, but yeah, so they just, were bouncing off each other this stuff. And it was just like, yeah, I mean, what are you gonna say to them? It's like, you can't come in there and be like, well, Jesus loves you. Okay, this is not the group of Jesus lovers, okay? And nobody believes that. And it's not even a counter because you're trying to argue something that there's no proof exists. So you cannot argue, you cannot have a debate or with somebody that's having this hard thinking about something we see in nature as being real, to coming in with your crazy ideology with that. So they would discount you. They would just disregard you completely. And there's nothing to counter it with because that's just nature. It is effed. I was like, it's just effed, But you have to come up with something to steer the topic to something better out of that mindset there. And I was saying, on my other clip that I didn't put up, I was like, yeah, well, what would you tell them? If you can't answer like what you could tell them, then we're failing, right? Because we don't even have a good thing to say about it. Maybe somebody else does, but technically no. I mean, it was something that came up in school when I was younger, and I was like, Okay, it is unusual, though, to capture the rise and spread of the new trend solely by using footage from remote cameras. So that was kind of an exciting thing. Finding another way to study animal culture. Maybe they were always doing it. You just never see it. For the howler monkey's sake, he hopes their cameras catch the extinction of this hobby. Oh, good luck. No, it's going to become a thing. Because the baby snatching have got to be hitting the local howler monkey population hard, as these monkeys don't reproduce often and they have only one baby at a time. So one of these things the researcher wants to understand now is if the howler monkeys will start to change their behavior to adjust to this terrifying and unexpected new threat on the island that has been a kind of safe haven with no large predators and abundant food. The easy living on this island actually may be why the capuchins, whatever, have the time and freedom to try doing random things that lead to activities like tool use or kidnappings. Or maybe they have plastic in their brain. Maybe they're on the spectrum. Like maybe there's a lot of things in this. I have no idea. Their parents were very abusive, and they're now associates. We know that in humans, boredom is incredibly conducive to creativity and innovation. No, we know boredom is a sign of a sociopath. I'm bored and I'm going to drop out of school and we're going to go kidnap some children. Yeah, it's like, which way are they going with it, right? And the person that's sane goes and does something sane, right? And the socio goes and does something harm to self and others, right? That's the difference. So you hear that I'm bored and complaining and they go and do drugs. Okay, so this is where the monkeys have landed in Sociopathville. So these island capuchin grabbing howler monkey babies may simply become something to do to pass the time in a kind of boring environment where it's relatively safe to come up with these potentially risky innovations. Okay. Christopher, who studies cognition in primates at Johns Hopkins University and wasn't part of this research team, says he's seen other primates in captivity capturing and playing around with animals they don't eat. In this case, the innovator may have been driven by curiosity and interest, and given how social and culture captions are, other observers may have started copying this behavior. He thinks the camera trap footage is a huge asset to this type of research program, but it would be helpful to have more direct observations of the capuchins and how they interact with the howlers to better understand how these infant captures occur, as well as how they spread. Capuchins are notoriously cultural species, showing all kinds of adaptive cultural traditions like using tools to obtain food, but also many arbitrary ones. One community had a tradition where individuals would put a group mate's finger in their own eyes. What the hell? It sounds like a frat house up in here. That's what they sound like, a bunch of frat boys. And that's where I think all the white men came from. This thing right here. And they're all a hot mess. And then all of a sudden, the Joker is going to make up a story that he was sent here from God, and then everybody's supposed to like totally worship him, and then he's going to poke everybody in the eye and then steal all the babies and touch the kids. And that's what the other guy's story was about. He's talking about, before he did all this stuff, is the horrors of this. And it's all no consent. So that's the basis of it. I was like, oh yeah, no wonder the government hates it, because it was about no consent. You're supposed to be for us like having no consent on everything. But that's actually what it was about. That was the stance of it. So I was like, well, how could I get mad at that? Because they're trying to say this and all this, but it shouldn't go to this point. Oh, and the other point of that was too, when he was trying to go as far back as to say that all these mass shoot or whatever he was saying is would probably end or be lesser if euthanasia was allowed for that. And it's just like, okay, well, first off, let me add that in, because I didn't put it in the other thing. If kids can't consent, then they sure as hell can't consent to a conduct like that. Like, they're too young to consent to have that done. That would be outrageous. Because most of those guys are usually minors, right? Or sometime, what, in their 20s. Well, this is later, but yeah, some of them are those. Some of them are minors. And to say that that is the best solution so they won't go do that, it wouldn't tackle that problem. And I would say maybe the fault in the story is because his viewpoint is about himself, right? It's all about how he feels about everybody else. A lot of those people, they have a different MO towards other people, and some of them do want to take other people out. Yeah, so the whole purpose is the action, not so much, oh, I'm so depressed and this is going to happen. There's just a lot in it. It's just a faulty logic type of thing where he came up with that. And again, it's from the point of view of his own emotions, right? His own problems over there. Because his is about, I actually care about the human race and this is horrific, versus looking at this and finding enjoyment off of the torture of animals. There's a difference. There's a difference.